The old apartment building stood shrouded in shadow, a monolithic testament to time and tragedy. It was a place where darkness lingered, seeping into the very foundation, a place where whispers echoed through empty hallways and secrets clung to the dust-caked walls. Locals spoke of a curse, a malevolent presence that haunted the building's dilapidated corridors, a story whispered in hushed tones and fearful glances. They spoke of the headless ghost, a specter condemned to roam the halls for eternity, its mournful cries a chilling reminder of a life brutally cut short. The building's history was a tapestry woven with threads of sorrow and despair. Each chipped paint flake, each creaking floorboard spoke of forgotten lives and lingering regrets. The air itself felt heavy, laden with the weight of countless untold stories, the residue of dreams shattered and lives extinguished within those cursed walls. Even on the brightest day, an oppressive gloom clung to the building, a palpable sense of unease that seeped into the bones, sending shivers down the spine. Few dared to venture into the building after sunset. The bravest souls, or perhaps the most foolish, who dared challenge the looming darkness, often returned with tales that chilled the blood. They spoke of disembodied footsteps echoing through the empty halls, of cold spots that clung to the air like icy fingers, and of a bone-chilling presence that watched from the shadows, its unseen gaze a palpable weight upon their hearts. But the most terrifying tales, the ones whispered in hushed tones around flickering campfires, were always about the headless ghost, the building's most infamous and feared resident. The first sign that something was amiss was the whispers. They were faint at first, mere murmurs that danced on the edge of perception, easily dismissed as the creaking of the old building or the wind whistling through ill-fitting windows. But as the days turned into weeks, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, seeping from the very walls themselves, weaving their way into the minds of the building's unfortunate residents. They were a cacophony of voices, a chorus of the damned, their whispers filled with anguish and despair, a chilling symphony of sorrow that played upon the nerves, driving some to the brink of madness. The whispers seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once, slithering through the ventilation system, seeping under the door jambs, swirling in the dust motes that danced in the faint moonlight filtering through grimy windows. They spoke of betrayal and loss, of a love shattered and a life stolen, their mournful cries a constant reminder of the tragedy that had stained the building's soul. Some claimed the whispers were the voices of the dead, trapped within the walls, their tormented souls unable to find peace, forever bound to the site of their suffering. Those who dared to listen closely to the whispers claimed they could discern a single voice amidst the spectral chorus, a voice filled with an icy rage that chilled the blood. It was a voice that spoke of vengeance, of a thirst for retribution that echoed through the ages, a promise whispered on the wind that one day the debt would be repaid. This voice, they said, belonged to the headless ghost, the vengeful spirit that haunted the building, its anger palpable in every creaking floorboard and every gust of cold air. The legend of the headless ghost was as old as the building itself, passed down through generations of tenants, each retelling adding a new layer of fear and embellishment. The ghost, they said, was once a man, a respected member of the community, a loving husband, and a loyal friend. But his life, once filled with promise and happiness, was brutally cut short, his dreams shattered by an act of unimaginable betrayal. The details of his demise were shrouded in mystery, lost to time and whispered speculation. But the one constant in every version of the tale was the gruesome manner of his death. He was found, they said, in his own apartment, his body sprawled upon the blood-soaked floor, his head severed from his body, his eyes staring vacantly at the ceiling. The murder weapon was never found, the killer never brought to justice. Some whispered of a jealous rival, others of a scorned lover, their imaginations running wild, fueled by fear and the insatiable hunger for a good ghost story. The truth, lost to time, was perhaps even more horrifying than any of the whispered tales. Whatever the truth of his demise, the man did not find peace in death. His spirit, bound to the site of his murder, was condemned to roam the halls for all eternity, searching for something he could never find, his stolen head, and with it perhaps the peace that eluded him in death. He became a specter of fear, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of their seemingly ordinary lives. He became the headless ghost, a legend whispered in hushed tones, a chilling embodiment of betrayal, loss, and the insatiable thirst for vengeance. The man who would become the headless ghost was once known as Edward, a name now lost to time, remembered only by the whispering walls and the mournful wind. He was a kind and gentle soul, a man who found joy in the simple things in life, a warm hearth, a good book, the company of his beloved wife, Eleanor. Their love was a beacon of light in a world often shrouded in darkness, a testament to the enduring power of the human heart. They were, by all accounts, a happy couple, their days filled with laughter and their nights with whispered secrets and shared dreams. Edward was a man of modest means, a skilled artisan who took pride in his craft, his hands crafting intricate pieces of furniture that adorned the homes of the wealthy and brought warmth and beauty to the lives of his neighbors. He was a respected member of the community, known for his honesty, his generosity, and his unwavering loyalty. He was, in short, a good man, a man who deserved a long and happy life, a man who deserved better than the cruel fate that awaited him within the walls of his own home. His world, so carefully constructed, so full of love and promise, came crashing down one fateful night. He returned home from a long day's work, his heart filled with anticipation for a quiet evening with Eleanor, only to find his world shattered, his dreams transformed into a nightmare. The door to their apartment stood ajar, a sinister invitation into a scene of unimaginable horror. He stepped inside, his heart pounding in his chest, a sense of dread washing over him like a cold wave. The sight that greeted Edward upon entering his apartment was one that would forever be etched into his soul, a grotesque tableau of betrayal and violence. Eleanor lay sprawled upon the floor, her lifeless eyes staring vacantly at the ceiling, her once vibrant beauty extinguished, replaced by the pallid mask of death. Blood, a crimson stain upon the wooden floor, pooled around her body, reflecting the flickering candlelight in a macabre dance of death. The air, thick with the coppery scent of blood, hung heavy in his lungs, choking him, stealing the breath from his body. He rushed to her side, his heart a leaden weight in his chest, his mind refusing to accept the horrifying truth before him. He cradled her lifeless body in his arms, his tears mingling with her blood, his cries of anguish echoing through the empty apartment, unheard, unanswered. In that moment his world shattered, the fragments of his broken heart scattering like dust upon the wind. The love they shared, the life they had built together, was gone, extinguished in a single brutal act of violence. As the initial shock subsided, a chilling realization washed over him, a realization that cut him to the core. This was no random act of violence, no robbery gone wrong. This was an act of betrayal, a cold and calculated murder, orchestrated by someone who knew them, someone who had shared their table, their laughter, their lives. He looked around the ransacked apartment, his eyes scanning the overturned furniture, the scattered belongings, the chilling emptiness that now filled the space where their love had once flourished. As Edward knelt beside his wife's lifeless body, his grief transformed into a raging inferno of anger, a thirst for vengeance that consumed him, body and soul. He vowed, in that moment of despair, that her death would not go unpunished, that the one who had stolen her life, who had shattered their world, would pay for their sins. He would find them, he swore, no matter how long it took, no matter the cost. He would have his revenge, a promise whispered into the cold, uncaring night. Driven by his grief and fueled by his thirst for vengeance, Edward embarked on a relentless pursuit of his wife's killer. He scoured the city, following every lead, every whisper, every rumor, his determination unwavering, his resolve hardened by the fire of his grief. He questioned their friends, their neighbors, anyone who might offer a clue, a piece of information that could lead him to the one who had shattered his world. But his efforts were met with dead ends, with shrugs and averted gazes, with a wall of silence that seemed impenetrable. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. And still, Edward found no answers, no solace, no justice for his beloved Eleanor. His hope, once a flickering candle in the darkness, dwindled with each passing day, replaced by a gnawing despair that threatened to consume him. He became a shadow of his former self, his features haggard, his eyes hollow, haunted by the memory of his loss. He was a man possessed, driven by a single-minded purpose, a man consumed by the ghosts of his past. Edward's quest for vengeance ended as abruptly and brutally as it began. He was found in his own apartment, his body sprawled upon the blood-soaked floor, a chilling echo of the scene that had greeted him months earlier. His head, severed from his body, lay a few feet away, his lifeless eyes staring vacantly at the ceiling. The killer, it seemed, had struck again, leaving behind another victim, another life extinguished, another soul condemned to wander the earth in restless torment. But Edward's story did not end with his death. His spirit, tethered to the site of his murder, was unable to find peace, trapped in a purgatory of his own making. He became the headless ghost, a specter of fear, forever searching for what was stolen from him: his head, his vengeance, his peace. His presence, a palpable chill, permeated the old apartment building, haunting its hallways, whispering its secrets to the wind. The building, once a haven of love and laughter, became a place of fear and despair, its walls stained with the blood of its victims, its corridors echoing with the mournful cries of the headless ghost. Tenants, driven to madness by the relentless haunting, fled the building, leaving behind their belongings, their lives, their sanity. The building stood empty, a testament to the enduring power of grief, a chilling reminder that some wounds never heal, some losses never fade. Years passed, and the stories of the headless ghost faded into legend, whispered tales told to frighten children and fuel late-night ghost stories. The old apartment building, condemned and abandoned, stood as a desolate monument to tragedy, a place shunned by locals, its windows like vacant eyes staring out at a world that had long forgotten its secrets. But the ghost, they said, remained, trapped within those crumbling walls, its presence a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of their seemingly ordinary lives. One night, a group of teenagers, emboldened by youthful bravado and fueled by cheap liquor, dared to venture into the abandoned building. They were drawn by the thrill of the forbidden, the allure of the unknown, eager to test their courage against the whispered legends. They entered the building, their laughter echoing through the empty hallways, their flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. They explored the dilapidated rooms, their footsteps echoing upon the creaking floorboards, their voices hushed in the face of the building's oppressive silence. They peered into dusty corners, their imaginations running wild, each creak and groan of the old building fueling their mounting terror. As they ventured deeper into the building, the air grew colder, a palpable chill that seemed to seep into their bones. A sense of unease settled over them, a feeling that they were not alone, that they were being watched. As the teenagers made their way down a darkened corridor, a cold gust of wind extinguished their flashlights, plunging them into absolute darkness. A wave of panic washed over them, their laughter replaced by gasps of fear, their bravado shattered by the sudden realization of their vulnerability. They fumbled for their lighters, their hands shaking, their breaths coming in ragged gasps, their eyes straining to pierce the impenetrable darkness. A sound, faint at first, reached their ears, a soft scraping sound like fingernails dragging across a wooden floor. It was coming from the end of the corridor, growing louder with each passing second. The teenagers froze, their blood turning to ice in their veins, their hearts pounding in their chests. They listened, their breath held captive in their throats, their eyes wide with terror, as the scraping sound grew louder, closer, until it seemed to be right outside the door. Suddenly, the scraping stopped. A moment of silence hung heavy in the air, a silence more terrifying than any sound. Then, a voice, cold and hollow, whispered their names, each syllable dripping with malice, each utterance sending shivers down their spines. The teenagers screamed, their voices echoing through the empty hallway, their fear palpable in the darkness. They scrambled backward, bumping into each other in their panic, desperate to escape the unseen presence that had invaded their sanctuary of bravado. The teenagers, driven by terror, stumbled through the darkened corridors, their hearts pounding in their chests, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. They could hear the scraping sound following them, relentless, inexorable, a chilling reminder of the unseen presence that hunted them. They fumbled for their lighters, their hands shaking, their fingers clumsy with fear, desperate for a flicker of light in the oppressive darkness. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with the source of their terror. Standing at the end of the hallway, bathed in the faint moonlight filtering through a grimy window, was the headless ghost. Its body, a shimmering silhouette, seemed to float a few inches above the floor, its empty collar a gaping maw, a chilling testament to its gruesome demise. Its one hand, skeletal and translucent, scraped against the wooden floor, creating the haunting sound that had pursued them through the labyrinthine corridors. The teenagers, paralyzed by fear, could only stare in horror as the ghost glided towards them, its empty gaze fixed upon them, its presence radiating an aura of icy vengeance. The ghost reached out with its skeletal hand, its touch sending waves of cold through their bodies, their screams swallowed by the oppressive silence of the abandoned building. The ghost, its mission fulfilled, its vengeance exacted, vanished into thin air, leaving the teenagers to their terror, their sanity shattered, their lives forever marked by their encounter with the headless ghost.